Every Christmas, my family reused the same word for me. Not my name. Not my work. Just the label, failed journalist. It was said lightly at first, like a joke everyone had already agreed was funny. A safe tradition, wrapped neatly between the roast turkey and the wine my father insisted on decanting properly. We were seated around the long dining table in my parents' house, the kind of place where success echoed off polished wood and framed awards. Every wall told a story, none of them mine. "So, Ethan," my uncle said, smiling as he lifted his glass, still doing that journalism thing. There it was. My mother laughed softly, the way she always did when the spotlight turned on me. "You know how he is," she added. "Still chasing stories instead of a real career." Across the table, my younger cousin fresh out of business school smirked. My sister avoided my eyes. My father didn't say anything at first. He never had to. Silence was his endorsement. I nodded once and reached for my water. That was the part that confused them most. I never argued. I never defended myself. I never listed what I was working on or how many nights I hadn't slept. Over the years, my quiet had become part of the joke too. Proof, they thought, that they were right. Ethan Walker, the one who dropped out of the smart path. Ethan Walker, the one without a title worth announcing. Ethan Walker, the family reminder of what not to become. Every Christmas, they repeated the label like a verdict that had already been finalized. And every Christmas, I let them. What none of them realized, what made that word so easy for them to say, was that they mistook silence for failure. And they mistook invisibility for insignificance. They had no idea that this Christmas would be the last time that label belonged to me. I didn't look successful because I had stepped away from the version of success my family understood. In our house, success came with a checklist. A respectable degree. A stable salary. A job title that sounded impressive at dinner parties. My parents loved things that could be measured: income brackets, promotions, square footage. Anything quieter than that made them uneasy. I had followed their plan once. Law school. Internships. Networking events where everyone spoke the same language of ambition and security. On paper, I was doing everything right. And yet, every time I read the news, I felt a kind of pressure building in my chest: stories buried, truths softened, people harmed because no one wanted to dig too deeply. So I left. Not dramatically. Not in protest. I just walked away from the path that felt safe and chose one that felt honest. I started reporting first for small outlets, then independently. Investigative work. Long pieces that took months, sometimes years, to finish. The kind of journalism that doesn't pay quickly and doesn't come with applause. From the outside, it looked like I was drifting. I lived in a modest apartment. I didn't update my LinkedIn. I didn't talk about money because there wasn't much to talk about. When relatives asked how work was going, I gave short answers. Not because I was ashamed, but because explaining my work always felt like trying to describe color to someone who only believed in numbers. My family filled in the gaps themselves. They assumed I was struggling because they never saw results they recognized. No promotions to celebrate. No luxury car in the driveway. No clear ladder to climb. To them, I had traded certainty for chaos, and that looked like failure. What they never asked was what I was working on. They never asked who I was speaking to, or why my stories took so long, or why I sometimes disappeared for weeks. They never asked what it cost to pursue the truth when powerful people preferred it stayed hidden. They only saw what wasn't visible. And in a family that valued appearances above all else, anything unseen might as well not exist at all. That was why I never looked successful to them. Because the work I was doing wasn't designed to be admired at a dinner table, it was designed to matter. By the time dessert was served, Christmas had stopped feeling like a celebration and started to feel like a hearing. It never happened all at once. That was the trick. One comment slid in casually, then another, until the attention settled squarely on me and stayed there. Someone asked a question they already believed they knew the answer to. Someone else chimed in with a helpful suggestion. The room leaned forward, interested. "So what exactly do you do all day?" My aunt asked, her tone polite but sharp around the edges. "Still writing those long articles no one reads." Before I could answer, my cousin jumped in. "Honestly, Ethan, have you ever thought about pivoting? Consulting maybe? Or PR? You already know how to write." There was a nodding agreement around the table. As if this had been discussed privately and now they were just letting me in on it. My father cleared his throat. "You're not getting any younger," he said. "At some point, you have to think about stability." My mother smiled at me the way she used to when I was a teenager who had disappointed her. "We just worry," she said. "Everyone else seems to be moving forward." That word again, everyone. My sister had recently bought a new house. My cousin had landed a job with a firm whose name carried weight. Their accomplishments were mentioned like evidence already submitted, their success unquestioned and complete. Then the focus returned to me. "How do you even afford your place?" Someone asked, laughing softly as if it were a harmless curiosity. Another voice followed. "Do you get benefits doing what you do? Retirement? Health insurance?" Each question landed heavier than the last. Not because they were cruel, but because they were delivered with the confidence of people who believed they were being reasonable. I noticed how no one asked what I was investigating. No one asked what I was writing about. They didn't ask because the answers didn't matter to them. What mattered was that my life didn't fit neatly into their definitions. I could have defended myself. I could have explained the months of work behind a single story, the sources who trusted me with their names, the risks involved in telling certain truths. But I knew how this would end. Explanations would only invite debate. Debate would only invite dismissal. So I stayed quiet. And in that silence the verdict settled in. To them, my calm became confirmation. My restraint became weakness. And Christmas dinner became a trial where the outcome had already been decided. I was the failure they all agreed on and they felt generous for telling me so. People often assume silence means surrender. In my family, that assumption became a convenient truth. Every time I didn't respond, they believed they had won the argument. Every time I let a comment pass, they saw it as confirmation that there was nothing to defend. The reality was simpler and harder. I didn't fight back because I had learned what fighting looked like in that room. It wasn't a conversation. It was a performance. Any explanation I offered would be picked apart, measured against salaries and job titles, then dismissed as idealism or excuse. I had tried once. Years ago. I never tried again. Silence, for me, wasn't weakness. It was containment. I was carrying work that wasn't finished yet. Stories that couldn't be rushed or summarized between bites of food. Investigations that depended on patience, trust, and timing. Talking about them too early, especially in that room, would have cheapened the process and endangered the people who had trusted me. There was also something else I understood, even if I couldn't name it back then. Validation that arrives only after success is not validation at all. It's approval with conditions. And I refused to audition for respect in my own family. So I sat there. I listened. I let them believe whatever version of me made them comfortable. Because the truth was, my work didn't need their understanding to exist. It didn't need applause to continue. It only needed me to keep going. Every year, they mistook my restraint for resignation. They never considered that I wasn't defending myself because I didn't need to. The story wasn't ready to speak yet. And when it finally did, I wanted it to be loud enough that my voice wouldn't be required at all. The interruption came quietly at first. A vibration against my thigh. Short, insistent. I ignored it, assuming it was another automated alert or a number I didn't recognize. My phone buzzed again a few seconds later. Then again. 3 times in less than a minute. Across the table, someone noticed. "Wow," my cousin said, glancing down. "Popular all of a sudden." A few people laughed. My father raised an eyebrow. "Probably spam," he said. "Or your landlord." More laughter. I kept my expression neutral, but I checked the screen beneath the table. A missed call. A voicemail notification. A text from an unfamiliar number. "Please call us back as soon as possible. This is important." I slipped the phone back into my pocket. Whatever it was, Christmas dinner was not the place. I had learned that lesson well, but the buzzing didn't stop. Another call came in, and this time my mother noticed the tension in my posture. "Is everything all right?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already expected the answer. "I need to step outside for a moment," I said calmly, pushing my chair back just enough to stand. My father's voice cut in immediately. "Sit down." The room went quiet. "We're in the middle of a family conversation," he said. If it's important, it can wait. It won't take long, I replied. He studied me for a moment, then smiled in a way that made my stomach tighten. No, he said. Actually, I have a better idea. If it's that important, take the call here. Put it on speaker. Ass. A few people chuckled. Others leaned forward, suddenly interested again. The implication was clear. Whatever this call was, it would only prove their point. I hesitated, not because I was afraid, but because I understood what they were hoping for. A sales pitch. A wrong number. Something small enough to mock. Unless you're embarrassed, my cousin added lightly. I looked around the table. Familiar faces. Familiar expectations. Then I nodded. Okay, I said, pulling my phone out and placing it face up on the table. I tapped the screen and pressed call back. Speaker? Speaker, my father confirmed. The phone rang once. Twice. The room held its breath, not with anticipation but with confidence. They were certain they already knew how this would end. So was I. Just not in the same way. The line clicked, then a calm, professional voice filled the room. Mr. Walker? This is Dr. Elaine Porter from the Pulitzer Prize Committee. Thank you for returning our call. For a fraction of a second, no one reacted. The name hadn't registered yet, not fully. It hovered in the air like a word spoken in a foreign language. I'm here with several members of the committee, she continued. I hope we're not calling at an inconvenient time. I glanced around the table. Every fork had stopped moving. My father's smile had frozen halfway into place. No, I said evenly. I can speak now. Is what are 64 those? There was a brief pause on the other end, then her tone softened. Ethan, I'll be direct. The committee has concluded its deliberations for this year's investigative reporting category. Your series has been selected. The room went completely still. Selected? I repeated, more to steady myself than to ask a question. Yes, she said. Unanimously. Your reporting demonstrated exceptional depth, courage, and public impact. The investigation you conducted uncovered systemic abuses that led directly to federal action. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My sister stared at the tablecloth as if it had suddenly become fascinating. Dr. Porter continued, unaware or perhaps fully aware of the silence on my end of the line. Your work resulted in multiple indictments, significant policy reform, and measurable change for millions of people. That level of impact is rare. I heard a chair shift. Someone had inhaled sharply. We would like to formally inform you that you are the recipient of this year's Pulitzer Prize. The word finally landed. Pulitzer. My father slowly set his glass down. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Additionally, Dr. Porter added, several major publications have already expressed interest in speaking with you about future work. We'll be sending documentation tomorrow, but we felt this news shouldn't wait. $27 and effin' bias time. Around the table, faces drained of color. The confidence that had filled the room minutes earlier had vanished, replaced by something fragile and unfamiliar. I thank you, I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. That means more than I can say. You've earned it, she replied. We look forward to celebrating your work properly in the coming months. The call ended with polite congratulations and a promise to follow up. For a moment, no one spoke. Not a single joke. Not a single comment. The label they had repeated for years, failed journalist, hung in the air, suddenly weightless, suddenly useless. I looked up from the phone. The table that had once felt like a courtroom now felt impossibly small, and for the first time that night, no one knew what to say. The shift was immediate and uncomfortable. My mother was the first to speak, her voice unsteady. Ethan, we didn't know. My father cleared his throat, suddenly careful with his words. If we'd understood what you were doing, things might have been different. Around the table, heads nodded. Eyes softened. The same people who had questioned my choices minutes earlier now searched my face for reassurance, for permission to rewrite what had just happened. But recognition has a strange way of exposing the truth rather than fixing it. You knew enough, I said quietly. You knew I chose this work. You just decided it wasn't worth respecting. No one interrupted me this time. I didn't keep my life private because I was ashamed. I continued. I did it because I learned early on that respect in this room came with conditions. Titles, numbers, proof. My cousin opened his mouth, then closed it again. I'm grateful for the recognition, I said. But it doesn't change the years of being dismissed. It doesn't turn jokes into support or silence into encouragement. I stood, pushing my chair back gently. This doesn't erase the past, I added. It just makes it visible. For the first time that night, no one argued, because they finally understood something I had known all along. Success can earn attention, but it cannot rewrite history. The room didn't erupt with celebration. It folded inward. My father was suddenly standing, then sitting again, unsure what posture fit this moment. My mother reached for my arm and stopped halfway, as if she wasn't sure she was allowed to touch me anymore. Well, my aunt said carefully, this explains a lot. It didn't. What it explained was how quickly judgment turns into praise when success becomes undeniable. The questions changed tone. The jokes disappeared. People began speaking softly, as though volume might undo what they'd just heard. We were worried about you, my mother said. You have to understand that. I do, I replied. You worried because my life didn't look like yours. Silence followed. Not the comfortable kind. This one pressed down on the table. I didn't need belief after the fact, I said. I needed basic respect when there was nothing to show yet. My sister finally looked at me. We didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said. That's what makes it harder. I stood, not to leave yet, but to draw a line that hadn't existed before. This recognition matters, I said. But it doesn't cancel the years of dismissal. It doesn't turn indifference into support. The savant, no one argued. No one laughed. Because boundaries, once spoken aloud, don't require agreement. Only acknowledgement. I left the table without anger, without triumph. Outside, the cold air felt honest. My phone buzzed again, messages, congratulations, requests, but none of them mattered as much as the quiet settling in my chest. For years, I thought being understood would feel like victory. It didn't. What mattered was knowing I had never been wrong for choosing work that couldn't be explained in a sentence or celebrated on demand. They had called me a failed journalist because they couldn't see the work. That was never my failure. The work had always been speaking. They just weren't listening. If my story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment and tell me what you would have done in my place. Your support means more than you know. If there's one lesson I hope you take with you, it's this: don't measure your worth by other people's timelines or approval. Quiet work still counts, boundaries still matter, and consistency beats validation. If this helped you even a little, please subscribe, like, and share. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who need them.